Whispers across the stars. Dr. Elian Morrow stared through the reinforced viewport of Nexus 9's observation deck, watching as the amber glow of the binary sunset cast long shadows across the mining colony's central plaza. 3 years stationed as humanity's cultural liaison on this distant outpost had taught him patience, but the message he'd received that morning had shattered his carefully cultivated calm. "You've been summoned by Lord Zorak himself," Administrator Keller had said, her voice betraying rare emotion. "The Astrian High Command rarely acknowledges our existence, much less requests our personnel by name." Elian ran his fingers through his dark hair, wondering how the notorious ruler of the Astrian Empire even knew who he was. His work in xenopsychology and cultural integration had been largely academic. Papers published in journals few read, conferences attended by specialists. Nothing that should have caught the attention of a warlord who controlled 17 star systems. The door behind him hissed open. "Transport's ready," said Keller, handing him a datapad. "These are your briefing materials. Not much, I'm afraid." Elian scrolled through the sparse information. Lord Zorak was sending 3 of his consorts to Nexus 9 to be placed under Elian's supervision for behavioral realignment. The language was cold, clinical. "He's treating them like malfunctioning equipment," Elian muttered. Keller's expression tightened. "Careful, Elian. The Astrian Mining Treaty keeps 17 colonies supplied with essential materials. Don't jeopardize that. So I'm supposed to, what? Break their spirits, make them obedient." "You're supposed to survive this assignment," Keller said flatly, "and ensure we all do too." 2 hours later, Elian stood in the docking bay as the Astrian vessel descended, sleek, predatory, and unmistakably a warship. A diplomatic escort would have been more appropriate, but the message was clear. These women were prisoners, not dignitaries. The boarding ramp extended with a soft pneumatic hiss. 3 figures emerged, each flanked by Astrian guards. Even from a distance, their differences were apparent. The first walked with regal posture, her gaze sweeping the hangar analytically. The second moved with scientific curiosity, examining everything around her. The third stepped lightly, almost hesitantly, her eyes downcast. As they approached, Elian noted their distinctive purple skin, varying in shade from lavender to deep violet. Their facial features were hauntingly similar to humans, save for the delicate ridges along their temples and the slight luminescence of their eyes. The lead guard, towering over Elian, extended a data crystal. "Lord Zorak's instructions. These consorts have forgotten their place. You will correct this deficiency." Elian accepted the crystal without comment, then addressed the women directly. "I'm Dr. Elian Morrow. Welcome to Nexus 9. The first consort, Naviri, according to his briefing, met his eyes with surprising boldness. "We are not here by choice, Dr. Morrow. Let us dispense with pleasantries." The guard growled, moving to strike her, but Elian stepped between them. "On this station, my authority prevails. There will be no violence." After a tense moment, the guards withdrew to their ship, leaving Elian alone with the 3 consorts. "My quarters have been prepared for your stay," he said quietly. "We should talk privately." Lysara, the second consort, tilted her head curiously. "You are not what we expected." "What did you expect?" Elian asked, as he led them through the station. Tella, the youngest, finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Someone who would break us." Elian stopped, turning to face them fully. "I have no intention of breaking anyone. Whatever Lord Zorak believes, I'm not a trainer of pets." For the first time, a flicker of something like hope crossed their faces. "Then what will happen to us?" Naviri asked. Elian considered his answer carefully. I think that depends on what you want to happen. This might be an opportunity none of us anticipated. As the station's artificial night cycle began, casting the corridor in soft blue light, Elian realized that his life, and possibly the relations between humans and Astrians, had just irrevocably changed. Part 2. Lessons in Freedom. The first weeks with the Astrian consorts transformed Elian's living quarters from a Spartan research space into something alive with tension and possibility. Rather than the rehabilitation center Lord Zarak had demanded, Elian established a sanctuary where questions were encouraged, not punished. In human culture, Elian explained, during their third morning together, we value personal growth and self-determination. Naviri, seated by the viewport with perfect posture, narrowed her luminescent eyes. Zarek calls such thinking a weakness of your species. He says it makes humans unpredictable. Perhaps unpredictability is our strength, Elian countered, offering her a data tablet. These are historical accounts of human societies that thrived through adaptation and change. Naviri hesitated before accepting it, her slender fingers brushing against his. The faint electric sensation of Astrian touch lingered on his skin. Meanwhile, Lysara had commandeered a corner of his laboratory. Her scientific mind, suppressed in Zarek's court, where female intellectualism was considered unseemly, flourished among Elian's research equipment. Your understanding of stellar cartography is remarkable, Elian noted, watching her map the complex gravitational patterns of the nearby asteroid belt. Lysara's purple skin flushed a deeper violet with pleasure. Lord Zarak permitted me to study only to better entertain his guests with trivial knowledge. He never allowed me to apply what I learned. Knowledge without application is like a bird forbidden to fly, Elian said softly. Lysara looked up, her luminescence in her eyes brightening. You have many such sayings. Humans have filled libraries with thoughts on freedom. The most dramatic transformation came from Tella, the empathic healer whose gifts had been exploited by Zarak to manipulate political rivals. In Elian's care, she began to understand her abilities as something sacred rather than a tool for espionage. One evening, Elian found her weeping quietly in the small garden he had created for them. "What troubles you?" he asked, sitting beside her among the transplanted flora from both our worlds. "I feel everything," she whispered, her voice trembling. "For years, Zarak forced me to use my empathic sense to expose weaknesses in others. But here," she rested her hand on her heart, "here I feel joy, curiosity, hope, emotions I was forbidden to acknowledge." I resisted the urge to comfort her with touch, knowing the intimacy such contact would create for an Astrian empath. "Your sensitivity is a gift, Tella, not a weapon." "Can a gift become a curse, then become a gift again?" she asked, her gaze finally meeting his. "I believe we define our gifts by how we choose to use them." Choice became the cornerstone of their daily interactions. Elian provided information and options, but never directives. The consorts chose their activities, their areas of study, even their meals, decisions that had always been made for them. Administrator Keller observed these methods with growing concern. "You're teaching them independence," she warned during a private meeting. "Lord Zarak will see this as defiance." "I'm teaching them to think for themselves," Elian corrected. "If Zarak wants mindless devotion, he should invest in service robots." Keller's expression darkened. "This isn't an academic exercise, Elian. Real lives, including yours, hang in the balance." "Including theirs," he added firmly. As the consorts began to reclaim their identities,
Elian documented their progress in reports that carefully emphasized improved functionality rather than awakened autonomy. Yet with each passing day, he found himself more deeply invested in their transformation. One night, after introducing them to human music, he watched as Naviri moved with unexpected grace to the haunting melody of a classical earth composition. Lysara dissected the mathematical patterns in the harmony, while Tella simply closed her eyes, absorbing the emotional resonance. In that moment, observing their quiet joy, Elian recognized a troubling truth. His professional detachment was eroding, replaced by something far more complicated. He was no longer merely their guide. He was becoming their ally, their confidant, perhaps something more.
Blossoming hearts. The 6th week brought a storm, not of Nexus 9's unpredictable weather patterns, but of emotions neither Alien nor the consorts had anticipated. What began as cultural exchange had evolved into something far more intimate. Naviri found Alien in the station's archives, researching Australian political history. "Your fascination with our empire structure is curious," she observed, sitting beside him. "Most humans study us only to find weaknesses." "Understanding isn't the same as exploitation," Alien replied, closing the historical text. "Your civilization has survived millennia. There's much we could learn from each other." "Each other," Naviri repeated thoughtfully. "Such reciprocity is foreign to Australian thinking. Zarak takes, he never exchanges." "Is that true of all your people?" "It wasn't always." Her voice softened with unexpected vulnerability. "Before the military caste gained dominance, we had partnerships. Bonds of equality. Something shifted between them, a moment of genuine connection that transcended their assigned roles. When her hand deliberately covered his, the gesture carried significance beyond mere touch. "In the old traditions, this would signify trust," she whispered. Alien turned his palm upward, intertwining his fingers with hers. "In human tradition, it often means the same." The connection with Lysara developed differently, through shared intellectual passion. One late night, as they worked side by side in his laboratory, she explained her theory for improving Nexus 9's failing atmospheric regulators. "Your solution is brilliant," Alien said, genuinely impressed. "Why would Zarak waste such a mind on ceremonial functions?" Lysara's expression clouded. Brilliance in females threatens him. He surrounds himself with what he desires but fears. "I find intelligence profoundly attractive," Alien admitted, the words escaping before he could censor them. Their eyes met across the illuminated display, calculations momentarily forgotten. Lysara moved closer, her scientific precision giving way to tentative desire. "Attraction between different species. Is this permitted in human custom?" "Connection transcends physical differences," Alien said softly. "We value compatibility of mind and spirit above all." Their first kiss was experimental, curious, a scientist's approach to intimacy. Yet the spark between them was undeniably real. Tella's relationship with Alien deepened through healing. During a minor mining accident, her empathic abilities helped him treat the injured workers, sensing their pain and guiding his emergency care. Afterward, emotionally drained, she sought him out in his quarters. "I felt their suffering, but also your compassion," she said. "It changed how I experienced their pain." "How so?" Alien asked,
offering her a cup of herbal tea. Through your eyes, I saw pain as something temporary, something that could be eased through care. Her violet eyes glistened. Zarak taught me to use others' suffering as leverage. You show me it can be a pathway to connection. When she reached to touch his face, the empathic link between them flowed both ways, her emotions washing over him like warm waves, his feelings reflected back to her. Their connection transcended physical attraction, touching something deeper. As the consorts discovered their capacities for independence, they also awakened to possibilities of intimacy based on choice rather than obligation. Evening conversations extended into night, intellectual discussions gave way to personal revelations, and professional boundaries gradually dissolved. One night, after sharing stories from their respective childhoods, all four sat together beneath the observation dome, watching cosmic dust create prismatic patterns across the sky. In that moment of shared wonder, the complex emotions between them crystallized into recognition. They had become a unit, a chosen family forged through respect and growing affection. On Estrella, Neveri said softly, this configuration of stars is called the convergence. It appears only once each cycle, when the three moons align. Elian smiled at the symbolism. Perhaps it's an appropriate sign for us as well. What happens, Tella asked hesitantly, when our time here ends, when we must return? The question hung in the air, a shadow across their newfound happiness. Elian had no answer that wouldn't sound like false reassurance, and the consorts were too perceptive for comforting lies. Instead, he reached out, taking Tella's hand in his left and Lasara's in his right. Neveri completed their circle, her fingers intertwining with her sister's in bond. Whatever comes, Elian promised, we face it together. What we've built here doesn't end with Zarak's summons. But even as he spoke, the station's communication system chimed with an incoming priority message from an Astraean military vessel, and their sanctuary of possibilities suddenly seemed terribly fragile. Part 4. Return to the Empire. The Astraean cruiser loomed outside Nexus 9's docking bay, its obsidian hull absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Commander Vex, Lord Zarak's personal enforcer, had arrived without warning, his message brutally clear. The consort's rehabilitation period was over. Lord Zarak is most curious about their transformation, he stated. The commander's red uniform bore the skull insignia of Zarak's elite guard, and his eyes, augmented with tactical implants, constantly scanned for threats. Elian stood with practiced diplomatic calm, though his heart raced. They've made remarkable progress in understanding human-Astraean relations. Relations? Vex's mouth curved into a cruel smile. An interesting choice of words, Doctor.
Revolution of the Heart. The imperial palace of Estrella Prime stretched across an entire mountain plateau, its crystalline spires reaching toward the triple moons like accusatory fingers. From the diplomatic shuttle, Elian observed the stark beauty of the Estrellan homeworld, violet skies, silver forests, and the legendary azure sea that wrapped around the continent like a protective embrace. Lord Zarak's honor guard met him at the landing platform, their ceremonial armor gleaming with precious metals that signified their status. The message was clear. Display, not functionality, defined power in this society. The human consultant will be escorted directly to the High Council, announced the lead guard, notably not addressing Elian directly, a calculated insult. Elian followed silently, cataloging every detail of the palace's layout. Servants moved with downcast eyes, courtiers engaged in elaborate social rituals, and security measures blended seamlessly with artistic elements. Everything communicated hierarchy, tradition, and control. The High Council chamber was a marvel of Estrellan architecture, a 12-sided room with walls of transparent crystal that created the illusion of infinite space. 7 elders occupied elevated seats, while Lord Zarak himself presided from a throne of polished obsidian. The consorts were notably absent. Dr. Morrow, Zarak began, his deep voice perfectly modulated for intimidation. You've created quite a disruption in my household. I fulfilled my assignment to educate your consorts in human Estrellan cultural understanding. Education? Zarak's eyes narrowed. Is that what you call it when Naviri questions succession laws that have stood for millennia? When Lysara distributes research challenging military expenditures? When Tella refuses her sacred duty to identify traitors through empathic reading? One of the elders, a female council member with age-silvered skin, leaned forward. Yet these actions have stimulated the most productive council debates in generations. Zarak's expression darkened at the interruption. Productivity born from chaos is still chaos, Elder Vina. Perhaps we should hear from the consorts themselves before judgment is rendered. At Zarak's reluctant signal, a side door opened. The 3 consorts entered with ceremonial precision, dressed in formal attire but with subtle modifications that Elian immediately noticed. Naviri's strategic insignia, usually reserved for military advisors, Lysara's scientific markers, normally worn only by male researchers, and Tella's headdress simplified to allow clearer perception. Their eyes met his briefly, conveying volumes in that momentary connection. The questioning began formally, each consort addressing the council with traditional deference while subtly introducing revolutionary concepts. Naviri spoke of adaptive governance, Lysara of transparent research protocols, and Tella of empathic ethics. Their words were careful, strategic, seeds planted in fertile soil. Throughout their testimony, Elian observed the council members' reactions. Several appeared thoughtful, even intrigued. Others remained stoically opposed. Zarak himself grew increasingly rigid, his control visibly straining. When finally permitted to speak, Elian chose his words with diplomatic precision. The Estrellan Empire stands at a crossroads familiar to many advancing civilizations. The question is not whether change will occur, but whether it will be guided by wisdom or resisted until it erupts chaotically. You presume to lecture us on governance? Zarak demanded. I offer perspective, as requested, Elian countered calmly. The consorts have not rejected Estrellan values, they've evolved them, creating a bridge between our worlds that could benefit both societies. Elder Vina nodded slowly. There is precedent in our ancient texts. Before the military ascendancy, the convergence era fostered similar philosophical adaptation. The debate continued for hours, tensions rising and falling like tides. Throughout, Elian maintained careful neutrality while supporting the consorts' positions. They, in turn, demonstrated both respect for tradition and compelling vision for progress, a delicate balance that gradually swayed several council members.
As proceedings concluded for the day, Elian was escorted to diplomatic quarters adjacent but carefully separated from the consort's chambers. The message was clear. They remained under scrutiny. Yet in the pre-dawn hours, as Nexus 9's training had taught them, they found their way to him through maintenance corridors mapped by Lysara during her research. Their reunion was both joyous and urgent, filled with whispered updates and contingency plans. The physical connection they had established on Nexus 9 remained powerful, touches lingering, gazes holding meaning beyond words. Zarak is losing support among the younger council members, Naviri explained, her strategic mind already mapping political realignments. Lysara added, "My research has been distributed through academic channels. Too many have seen it now for simple suppression." "And the palace staff speaks of change," Tella whispered, her empathic senses detecting the shifting emotional currents throughout the complex. "Hope is spreading, but so is fear." As they spoke, Elian realized that what had begun as personal connection had evolved into something larger, a catalyst for cultural transformation. These women, once decorative possessions, had become architects of a new possibility. "Whatever happens," Elian said, taking their hands in his, "what we built together is real, not just between us, but the vision of what could be." The final council session 3 days later became a turning point in Australian history. Faced with growing support for the consort's perspectives, Zarak made a critical miscalculation, attempting to have them removed from the chamber by force. As guards moved to seize them, Elder Vina invoked an ancient rite of sanctuary. Other counselors joined her, creating a constitutional crisis that required immediate resolution. In the ensuing debate, Naviri proposed a compromise that would preserve Zarak's position while creating a new governing council that included female representatives. Lysara offered technological innovations that would benefit military and civilian interests equally. Tella suggested empathic intelligence training for diplomatic corps that would strengthen Australian influence without force. Each proposal demonstrated not rejection of Australian ways, but evolution, advancement that honored tradition while embracing new possibilities. As the council vote concluded, approving a trial period for these innovations, Zarak's expression remained thunderous but resigned. The political calculus had shifted irreversibly. In the aftermath, as preparations began for a formal cultural exchange program between Nexus 9 and Estrella Prime, Elian found himself in the palace gardens with the 3 women who had changed not only their society, but his life. "Will you stay?" Naviri asked, the question they had all avoided until this moment. Elian looked at each of them, Naviri with her strategic brilliance, Lysara with her scientific vision, and Tella with her empathic wisdom. "My assignment was temporary," he began. "As was ours," Lysara reminded him, a smile playing at her lips. "But some temporary things create permanent change." Tella took his hand, the empathic connection between them flowing with unspoken emotion. "What we built cannot be contained by traditional structures, human or Australian." Elian understood then that they were offering something unprecedented, a new kind of partnership that would bridge their worlds not through formal treaties, but through genuine connection. "Perhaps," he suggested, "we continued to evolve together, creating something neither of our worlds has seen before."